Time, I call the member for Maitland.
Thank you, Mr Acting Temporary Speaker. I've witnessed many, many moments in my life that have made me proud to be a member of the Australian Labor Party. And tonight, albeit a long moment, it has been one of those moments as I sat on these benches to support the Leader of the Opposition as he took the time to consider and articulate Labor's extensive objections to the bill before us today. I'm actually in awe of his articulate and passionate defence of the many, many working people in our community who participate in the greyhound industry as owners, as trainers, as breeders, spectators, suppliers, vets and many, many more. And he did all this in the face of significant misinformation and distortion of the facts, such as what we saw before. And I won't go into all the detail, you'll be pleased to know, about social licence. And it's interesting to note the member for Ku-ring-gai's interjections regarding definitions of natural justice, when he's then been giving a bit of a talk there about social licence. Now, I want to say that when the Baird government first made this announcement, I was absolutely shocked. How could a responsible government take half of one recommendation of a report, which has since then had in the order of up to 10 recommendations, corrections, and implement half of that first recommendation, and not bring it to the Parliament as was recommended, but rather make an announcement on social media signalling that the government would destroy the lives and the employment of tens of thousands of people in this state? And what is the value of the 79 other recommendations if this is the only one that we implement? What is the value of the evidence that was given? And I think we've heard some compelling arguments there to say that there was not a fair hearing given to the industry. There was not the ability to rebut evidence which has since been discredited. I was flooded with calls, messages and emails from local members of my greyhound industry in Maitland, absolutely gutted about what their Premier had done to them in a Facebook post. And slowly came abusive posts and angry ones on my Facebook page, but they were mainly out of this area, in fact, out of the state of New South Wales. It was a campaign by the animal justice lobby. It was not about the people of New South Wales in regional communities who live and work every day in this industry. Now, unlike the Premier, I don't run my portfolio as a Shadow Minister or even my electorate as the member for Maitland by social media. Of course, I post my comments on social media, but also I'm actually out there engaging with everyone in our community. And I took the opportunity to visit the Maitland dogs a couple of weeks ago with the member for Cessnock Clayton Bar. Now, in that visit, I was asked by a journalist what my thoughts were about the Premier's latest 12 tweets or something like that day about this issue. And my response was, what, is this where we're going in New South Wales? Is this the new state of business in New South Wales? That this place means nothing? That it's all about social media? It's not actually about a debate across the chamber here. It's not about considering what the impact of the powers that we exercise, as was articulated so eloquently by the Leader of the Opposition, what the impact of those powers is on people like yourselves. And I would like to acknowledge the members of the greyhound industry who are here tonight. The action that Premier has taken in taking this debate, in leading it on social media, without, as the member for Cootamundra so articulately said in her speech, referring to the own opinions of his own party room, of that of the National Party, is a disgrace. We understand emergency powers, we understand that there are emergency situations where executive power needs to be exercised, but this is not one of them. This action of governing by social media brings in to disregard the institution of our Parliament, of this very place. And I think the Leader of the Opposition actually brought this place back into some sort of regard tonight. His speech, articulate and considered and respectful of the thousands of people who will be impacted by this disgraceful decision of the Liberal National Party is the only chance, that 2 hours and 10 minutes is the only chance that your industry is going to have to be heard in this debate. And that is actually a disgrace of this government that they would do this. I note the member for Barwon has grown in my respect tonight, having crossed the floor to vote with us on an amendment by the opposition that would have taken this to the Supreme Court, or let the Supreme Court have its process, to have due process. What's been missing in this whole debate, before we have this rushed till midnight or whatever time we're here to tonight, to basically kill an industry. And that's what we're talking about. There are too many in our state who are totally disengaged by and disempowered and betrayed by politicians who say one thing in private and one thing in public and another even again when they vote. And this is a claim that our Premier said tonight. He said leadership's not about saying one thing behind closed doors in private and another when you vote. And I'm really interested that he brought that up tonight after revelations in question time regarding planning regulations and issues there, but also his claims, his spurious claims of an attempt to put together a bipartisan approach to this matter. It's a disgrace. There has been no bipartisanship. I don't actually remember ever hearing that Mike Baird went to the Leader of the Opposition and said, I'm going to put this up. It just went straight to Facebook. I was astonished that the Premier would even go there on that. The decision to close an industry is one that should be made with great care and with great regard to the impacts on the people who are impacted, and they should be given real consideration, not a number for Lifeline or Beyond Blue. But I have to tell you that as Shadow Minister for Small Business in this state, this is a story that I am hearing around the traps all over the state. Whether it's hairdressers, whether it's commercial fishers, whether it's the Greyhound industry, any industry at all that you want to talk about, you are all at the whim of this government. I have met with people in this industry, both in my office and at that local Greyhound meeting I attended some weeks ago. People from the industry have told me of issues in governance, poor decision-making, government incentives that actually increased overbreeding. They've been concerned about the safety of their own dogs on tracks that the government left open or even invested in, as opposed to tracks that were closed. These people have felt let down by the ministerial appointees who have not listened to the industry, and they are committed to change. And as someone who is interested in the change process, I have to say that the report of that Justice McHugh put out talked about a situation which started last year. And in that time, the industry has made enormous attempts to reform itself to make change. And we all know that change is a very difficult beast to tame. We all know that there are people who are involved in change who are resentful, who are angry, who don't want the cost attributed to them, and as Luke said in his speech, as the Leader of the Opposition said in his speech, who are trying to justify disgusting practices that they themselves have undertaken. So it is not unheard of that these people would be the people front and centre of a reform process. And for the government to only take that evidence into account is selling out an entire industry, and more than that, it is actually taking away the industry's right to natural justice. Deputy Speaker, I'd like to ask for an extension of time.
Question is that the member's time be extended. All those of that opinion say aye. To the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The member for Maitland.
Many of us people involved in the industry live in my community, and they've shared their concerns with me. They are trainers and owners who love their dogs and follow safe and healthy practices. They are appalled, as the rest of us are, about the vile actions of a rogue minority. When I talked to a Greyhound industry member who told me about how he had to tuck his dogs into bed, one particular dog into bed each night before it would go to sleep, I knew that this person cared about the animals. While I respect the views of all my community, I have to say that some of the comments that this debate has brought out have really, really concerned me, and they have crystallised for me what is totally wrong about this move by the government. One person in my community, one of the very few who actually wanted to interact with me to say that they agreed with the proposed ban, told me very clearly that over 90%, in fact I think the number that they quoted was 98% of the industry was involved and had perpetrated in acts of cruelty against animals. Now this is absolutely wrong, and it is not the conclusion of the McHugh report, and what's more, comments like that to me are what is actually wrong with the whole debate on this issue and the government's whole approach to this issue. My own husband and his family were involved in the greyhound industry. I watched, as in their later years before they passed away, his pensioner grandparents going without clothing, like new clothes, really good food, to ensure that their dogs had the best. It was a fight to get them to take anything for themselves because everything went on those dogs. They were the light of their lives. I take personal umbrage at the insinuation of this government that my father-in-law and his parents are the people who are criminals by association. This is not a value that is entrenched in our legal system. We do not do collective punishment. We do not do collective justice. We do not say that because you are a member of a particular social group that you are guilty. That is not the Australian way. Mike Baird has not done anything in this bill to save animals or to protect animal welfare. If he had wanted to do that, he would have undertaken to enact the opposition's policy that was taken by the Leader of the Opposition to the election in March 2015, to have a full, complete package of animal welfare. And I agree, and I'm concerned that the small minister, Minister for Small Business in this state, cannot see that every other single animal practicing industry in this state is on the chopping block with this legislation if it goes through. It's a point that's been made on this side of the House. It's a point that was made by the member for Cootamundra. It would be naive to think that this does not create a precedent for other industries. But what Mike Baird has done, what the Premier has done with this legislation is to do what he does best, and that is to divide our community. When I go to a Greyhound track, I don't see Mercedes, BMWs in the car park. I see Fords, I see Toyotas, I see Holdens, and I don't see anything usually in the late 2010s, right? This is class warfare at its best. This is what this government has been doing, and they are ignoring the complexity of issues, of opinions on this issue. There would not be one person in the state of New South Wales, in my electorate of Maitland, who does not feel for animals who have been mistreated. But by the same token, there is not one person in this country who would say that it was an Australian thing to do to judge an entire group of people on the actions of a few. Now, I want to talk briefly, before I finish, about Maitland and the showground that is there, that is the dog track. Now, that is a community-owned resource. It's not Crown land. There's a very small parcel. What is going to happen to that site if half of the revenue that comes into them through the dogs goes? The state government has just put in $250,000 to upgrade the grandstand. What is going to happen to that? We see concerns about the rest of the state in relation to the land grab that is potentially on the table. In closing, I would like to say that I am vitally concerned as a Shadow Minister for Small Business, that small businesses in our state not just in the agricultural sector, but in every single sector, should be very scared of what the Baird government is doing here, because they will be after you next. Thank you.
Question is...